4 years ago this month, former Congressman Aaron Schock resigned amid allegations of misusing taxpayer money. Now charges against him have been dropped. Now joining me now live from Los Angeles to talk about all of this is Aaron Schock himself. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Eugene. Good to be with you.
Now, I want to go ahead and start off with this. You faced multiple corruption charges. Now those have been dropped pending payment of restitution and back taxes. So how are you feeling now that this ordeal is coming to an end?
Well, I think there's great relief for me and my family and supporters. It's been 4 long years, and as I said 4 years ago when I left office, that there were mistakes in my office that were made. I could have done a better job of ensuring better paperwork, but that there was no purpose on my part or those who worked for me to do anything wrong. As you know, they audited over $20 million of transactions over 8 years, and the government finally came to me and said, look, we don't think you did anything criminal, but we do think there's about $68,000 of expenses that we found in 4 different accounts that we'd like you to pay back. And I said, that's fine. I'm happy to do that. But I'm glad that my constituents can know that I never violated their trust, and I certainly never committed any crimes, nor did anyone who worked for me. And now it's looking to the future and looking at what I've learned through this process and how I can do things better in my own public and private life, and looking for what opportunities there are for me in the private sector, as well as to make a difference in my community.
Aaron, do you think that you were unfairly targeted in this ordeal?
Well, I think anytime you're a high-profile person, you get political attacks launched at you, and certainly I was someone who did not keep my head down when I was in Congress. By my 3rd term, I was in Republican leadership. I was on the most powerful committee in Congress, and I was the 5th highest fundraiser out of 435 people in the Congress. So for those reasons, there's a lot of people that wanted to bring me down, and which is why a lot of the opposition research and attacks that were relayed in the press ended up not being true. As far as the prosecutor who focused on me, he clearly thought I was his ticket to stardom, and I do believe that he ultimately trumped up these charges against me because he thought that this could be the reason why he could become the next U.S. attorney. He was very outward about his interest in that job, and very outspoken to those around him that he thought my case could provide him the justification for a higher position. I was glad that ultimately, because of some of his inappropriate behavior, he was removed from the case, and a new set of prosecutors, looking at all the facts, interviewing all the witnesses, came to the right determination, which was there was no merit to the 24 charges that he brought. Having said that, it came with a lot of a cost to me, both financially. Had to spend over $4 million the last 4 years defending myself against these wrongful charges, and also great emotional expense to me and my family and supporters who were uncertain about the future.
Well, speaking of your future, we're going to take a quick break now, Aaron, but when we come back, why you decided to step down in the first place back in 2015, and then also your future. What's next? We'll be right back. More with Aaron Schock.
Sure.
We are back with former Congressman Aaron Schock. Has just had charges against him dropped. I wanted to ask you, back in 2015, when you made that decision to step down from office, believing that you had done nothing criminal, do you regret that decision? Why did you choose to step down?
Well, Eugene, that's probably a question that I get asked the most from my supporters, and frankly, it's a question I began to ask myself shortly after I did step down. And I did so because I felt like all of the hype and media around me at the time was inhibiting my ability to do my job. And I know it sounds cliche to say it, but public service to me was always about my constituents. It wasn't about me. And when it became clear to me that all of this attention was distracting from my ability to do my job, I thought I was doing what was best for my constituents in putting their interests ahead of mine and stepping aside. And I believed that very quickly the dust would settle and people would realize that there was no truth to the allegations against me. Unfortunately, we now see that took a different path with this rogue prosecutor. Having said that, I do believe if I would have stayed in office, not only would I never have been charged, but I think ultimately the House Ethics Committee process would have proven me out to be innocent of these allegations. So, and therefore would have kept the job. But, you know, hindsight's 20/20. I think no matter what line of work you're in, no matter where you are in life, you can look back at certain points in your life and say, gee, I wish I could have done that a little different, or maybe made this decision differently. And so I'm a big believer that you learn from those mistakes, you learn from those lessons throughout your life, and you become a better person as a result. So I'm not going to, you know, beat myself up too much about that decision, and focus on the future. And you know, that may involve running for office down the road. It may simply mean that I find other ways to serve my community. So we'll see. Time will tell.
So I do want to ask you about that. You just kind of hinted that there's a possibility, because you really were once seen as the rising star in the Republican Party. So what is next for your career? Are you seriously considering a political comeback? Because it sounds like you really do feel fondly of your time in office.
Well, your viewers will know that, you know, I'm 37 years old. From the time I was 19 to the time I was 33, I held elected office. So for most of my cognizant adult life, I was a public official. And I think while your viewers may not all agree with the decisions I cast, some of them may not have ever voted for me, but I think they would have to agree that I worked very hard in the job that I held, whether it was at the local school board, whether it was in the state legislature, or whether it was in Congress. I worked 7 days a week, and I made sure that I got around to all parts of my congressional district at the time. And so I enjoyed my job, and I constantly woke up every day thinking about the people I was serving and trying to figure out the best way to deliver for them. It's also an all-in type of job. It was 24 hours, 7 days a week, and I will say that while the last 4 years has been stressful for me from a legal perspective and dealing with the government, I've been able to enjoy some evenings, I've been able to enjoy some weekends, and have a little bit more free time than I was used to the prior 14 years I was in office. So for right now, it's a great sigh of relief for me and those around me to know that this is behind me, and now I can look forward and look at what opportunities might lie ahead. I simply say I don't know because I don't know. And I know people like to say, well, will you run? Well, look, I'm 37. Most people don't run for office till they're in their 50s or 60s. So I'm not going to say never, but I'm certainly not plotting and planning for any elected office in the near future. And I firmly believe that all of us can make a difference for our respective communities without serving. You can serve without running for office. And sometimes people can make a greater impact in their community by not even being in office. So I have a heart to serve, and I think there's multiple ways to do that. And I also think the private sector is exciting as well. I've been focused on real estate development, which is what I was doing before I ran for Congress, and I've been having success and enjoying that as well. So I'll take some time now that this is behind me, and you know, certainly appreciate the outreach that I've felt from some people back home to consider a possible run, but I'm not ruling anything in or out at this point.
All right. Well, Aaron Schock, thank you so much for being with us today. I know you're in LA right now, but definitely next time you're in Central Illinois, we'd love to sit down and talk with you then as well. Again, Aaron Schock joining us today. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Eugene. It's great to be with you.
All right.